Hi there, welcome back to another video. So I'm finally getting around to showing you all how I do my nails with my non-dominant hand. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that is the most important is having something that pretty much stabilizes your hand. So I am going to be using what you guys see in my videos all the time. It's actually not decoration. It's an armrest. Personally, I have two different armrests. I have this one here and then this one as well. And for me, they both have different uses. The first one I have here is shorter, but it also is a lot more comfortable because of the material. It is softer and it reminds me a little bit of a pillow. But this one here, I like it when I'm doing my non-dominant hand because it is a lot more firm. So I'm able to place my hand down and stabilize my wrist without it moving around too much. I also like to be as close to my eyes as I can possibly get because it makes things a lot easier for me. It really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. If you want something a little bit more comfortable and you don't mind it being a little bit shorter, you can opt for this one. But if you want something that sits up taller, then this one will probably work best. Okay, so now that we have that out the way, we are gonna begin prepping the natural nails. So I'm taking this cuticle remover and I'm going to be placing a little bit of it on each of the fingers. And then I'm going to take this tool and begin pushing back my cuticles. I do recommend using texture tools because then your fingers will have something to hold onto versus the tools that are smooth on the entire surface where your hands can potentially slip and slide. It's very important to have stability, especially when working with your non-dominant hand, and using these texture tools really do help you get a good grip. I also like to hold my cuticle pusher tool a little bit differently when I'm using my non-dominant hand. I make sure my pointer finger is about 1/4 of the way up on the cuticle pusher, and then I will use my thumb to help stabilize it a bit. Once you have a good grip on your tools, you then want to stabilize your dominant hand. So for me, I am right-handed, so I need to stabilize this hand here. The best way is actually just to lay your hand down on your armrest. So when it comes to your cuticle nippers, it is very important to get one that looks like this instead of this. And the difference is this one right here kind of locks in place, but it never really stays in place. So when you're working with it, it'll pop back up and it hurts honestly. This one right here actually stays in place and you don't have to worry about falling out of place. It's just here and it makes things so much easier. Once I am done with my cuticle prep, I am going to clean everything off with alcohol and a lint-free wipe. So for this video, I personally will be using a peel-off base coat, but if you don't want your nails to pop right off within a couple of days, you would go in with your natural nail prep. So if you weren't sure how to do that, first thing you would apply would be your dehydrator, then your primer, and then you would apply a gel glue on top and let it cure for about 60 seconds. Now that the natural nail prep is out of the way, it's time to prep my extensions. So in this video, I will not be using a drill at all. So to prep the inside of these, I am going to be using the Gel X Prep by Apres, which basically creates texture by chemically etching the inside of the extensions. Because you're working with your non-dominant hand, I highly recommend that you etch the inside of the extension up into the point where your natural nail stops. So if you are not sure visually where that would be, you can actually measure it. So what you would do is just place the extension on top of your natural nail, and then I'll take a Sharpie and mark where the natural nail stops. Now that it's all marked up, I'm going to begin etching with that Gel X Prep. What this does is help you realize how far up you need to place your gel glue so that you actually cover your entire nail. If you have never used Gel X Prep before, this is what it's going to look like once you're all done. There's going to be texture here, and this is exactly what we want. If you are wondering if that permanent marker on the extension causes any issues, it actually does not. All you would do is take some alcohol and wipe it away, and you're good to go. Before I get started with the application process, there is something I want to share with you really quickly. From my experience, it is easier to apply longer length extensions with your non-dominant hand than it is shorter extensions. And I'm going to visually explain why. So when you're applying shorter extensions, you have a lot less room to work with when it comes to getting a good grip on them. So your thumb it typically is what holds it in place, but if you notice here, it will block the view. So you can't see how far up the gel glue is on your natural nail. But when you're applying a longer length extension, you have a lot more room to work with and get a good grip. So you can place your thumb higher up on the extension without blocking your view. Of course, this is going to be dependent upon how long your natural nails are, but typically that is the case. Now, I am by no means saying go out and only buy longer extensions just to make the application process easier, especially if you don't typically wear longer extensions. But what I do recommend you go out and get are some tweezers. So it's really important that you grab some tweezers that are longer because some of the tweezers that are out there on the market for removing hair, for example, they're going to be too short. So you want to make sure the handle is nice and long so you have a good grip and it's not slipping and sliding everywhere. So you can do this hack for not just short extensions, but for longer extensions as well. Okay, so now we're getting ready to apply the extensions. I am going to be working from left to right, basically going from my thumb to my pinky, and I recommend everyone do this because it makes things so much easier. So I'm going to be applying the first extension with my tweezers, following the methods I have shared so far. So I'm starting off with my Sharpie and I'm marking how high up I want the gel glue to be. I'm doing this process again because I'm not prepping the inside of the extension because I am using a peel off base coat and I don't want them to stay super long because I have a bunch of content to get out. So that's why it looks different. So I'm taking the gel glue and I'm applying it up into that line and then working my way downward. As I'm working with the tweezers, I am going to gently press downward. And I really like this because you don't have to add any pressure. The glue does move a lot slower when you're doing this, but you have some good control. So once I get the extensions all applied, I am going to go ahead and flash cure in my lamp for 15 seconds. So the rest of the nails, I am going to do the normal way and basically just use my hands to apply everything. The tweezer hack really does help, but if you are struggling to get a good view, if you're using shorter extensions, the tweezer hack definitely is the way to go. Or even if you want to try it on longer extensions, you can do it too. So now my extensions are all applied. I am going to cure in my big lamp for about 60 seconds. At this stage, I do want to do some shaping and filing, and I also want to remove any excess glue that may have cured on top of the extensions. You can use something like 100 over 180 grit or even a 240 grit, but I do find that the 80 grit nail files just work a lot faster because they cut through that excess glue. But just be sure that you aren't accidentally filing your natural nail with this because it is going to be too harsh for your natural nails. So next, I'm going to be removing the shine from the nail with a buffing block because this is going to prepare the extensions for polish. What I'm doing is placing my thumb underneath my pointer finger and I'm going to rest my pointer finger on top of my thumb. Instead of moving my non-dominant hand, which is the one with the glove, I'm actually going to just be moving my finger back and forth. So you're not doing any real work with your non-dominant hand. What's doing the movement and the work is your dominant hand. So now, since we won't be using a drill, it is time to seal those cuticles, but I'm going to be using the acetone trick where you basically just get some acetone onto the bristles of your brush and then you just move back and forth. So now everything is all applied, prepped, primed. It is time to paint these nails. So when I'm painting my nails with my non-dominant hand, I really like to make sure that I start kind of maybe 3/4 of the way down the nail. And the reason why is because usually there's a bunch of polish hanging out on the brush with the first stroke, no matter how much you try to like scrape it off on the edge of the bottle beforehand. And because, well, at least in my case, there's a lot less strength in my non-dominant hand, it just makes it easier for me to just start here so that I don't have to worry about flooding my cuticle. So the other thing I want to say before you start painting your nails, make sure you limit the amount of caffeine so you're not super jittery and shaky, because I typically do my nails pretty late at night. I'm talking like midnight. So what I like to do is drink a little bit of caffeine, and it's not the smartest thing because my hands usually are shaky. So I know that is random, but it is something I noticed when I was filming this video and I never thought too much into before. So if you are someone who gets a little bit jittery or just a little bit, shaky, if you've had too much caffeine, try not to drink caffeine before doing this. If there are any spots you miss, whether it's around the cuticle area or even on the sides of the nail, you can take that thin liner brush and add additional polish in specific areas. So that way you don't have to add a whole new layer of polish just to cover any spots you may have missed. This polish definitely needs a second coat, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, but I am making sure to still keep the brush slow and steady. I'm also laying my hand as well as my wrist of my non-dominant hand on that armrest. The best thing about working with gel polish is if it isn't cured yet, you still have time to clean up any mistakes you made. So what I like to do is take acetone on a very flat brush and clean around my edges to make it look like I'm the most perfect painter in the world, when in all reality, I am not. So when you're working with your non-dominant hand, you may be shaky, but that's okay because acetone and a flat brush will be here to save the day. I swear I did not plan that rhyme, but I'm gonna leave that in there. Since I will be working with chrome, I'm gonna go ahead and apply a no wipe top coat and then curing it in my lamp for 60 seconds. Now I'm gonna go in with some chrome powder here, and I'm going to apply this with a cosmetic wedge. The reason why I'm using this is because it's wider, so it's gonna cover a greater surface area. It's also longer, so I have the opportunity to get a better grip that's more comfortable, and it makes things a lot easier, so I'm not having to apply so much of the chrome in smaller sections. So to finish everything up, I am going to apply a top coat to seal all the chrome in and then do my final 60-second cure. So that wraps up this video. I really do hope it was helpful. I know how annoying and stressful it can be to paint with your non-dominant hand, especially when you're beginning your DIY nail journey. But I'm hoping that at least something I've shared in this video is going to make your life a little bit easier. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below and share your favorite non-dominant hand hack. But in the meantime, I will be seeing you in one of these videos here.